1. Codex Aubin, a clean English listening edition. The historical narrative presented as continuous English prose, without repeated source citations, scanned phonemes, transcription blocks, confidence labels, or lexical notes. 2. A note before listening. This edition is designed for uninterrupted reading aloud. It preserves the English text and its chronological order, while removing the scholarly apparatus from the Nahuatl-anchored working edition. The language remains a cautious working translation. Where the surviving text itself is fragmentary or uncertain, the English may still sound abrupt. Consult the Nahuatl-anchored version 2 when a passage needs close research or verification. 3. Here is written what was an account of the years of the Mexica. There are only 4, and that's what they are called. 1 reed ends at 13 reed, 1 flint ends at 13 flint, 1 house ends at 13 house, 1 rabbit ends at 13 rabbit. And when the 4 of them finish, our years are immediately tied to year 2, a period of 52 years, which is a complete age. It was written here in Mexico on September 27, 1576. Second indication of the house called 1 reed is 13 years old and has 3 officers. In the first house where the hand is, this land was discovered. In the second, the Spaniards entered it. In the third, they beat Mexico. In the fourth, they began to build Mexico. In the sixth, the 12 friars arrived. The Huexotzincas, Calcas, Xochimilcas, Cuitlahuacas, Malinalcas, Chichimecas, Tepanecas, and Matlatzincas. They came from Quinahuayan. Here is written the history of where the Mexica came from the place called Aztlan. They came out of the middle of the water, and there were 4 Calpoli communities. They came, passed by in canoes, and placed their fir branches, and that place was called Quinahuayan Aztotl, the cave of the quick exit. It was located there, and 8 Calpoli communities emerged from there. The first Calpoli community was the Huexotzincas. The second Calpoli community was the Chalcas. The third Calpoli community was the Xochimilcas. The fourth Calpoli community was the Cuitlahuacas. The fifth Calpoli community was the Malinalcas. The sixth Calpoli community was the Chichimecas. The seventh Calpoli community was the Tepanecas. The eighth Calpoli community was the Matlatzincas. There was Colhuacan, and there were its inhabitants, who had also left Aztlan. There they lived when the Aztecs passed by. There they lived when the Aztecs passed through them. When passing through Colhuacan, the Aztecs were seen and told, "Our gentlemen, where are you going? Let us accompany you." And the Aztecs said, "Where shall we take them?" And the 8 Calpoli communities responded, "No, our gentlemen, we will not accompany you." And the Aztecs responded, "Okay, we'll take them." Later, in Colhuacan, they passed by the devil called Huitzilopochtli, whom they worshipped. They brought a woman named Chimalman, who was brought from Aztlan. They came in 4 groups when they were advancing. In year 1, Tecpatl left Colhuacan. There were 4 who came carrying the devil: Quao, Apan, Tesca, Chimal. The first was called Qualcohoatl, the second Apanecatl, the third Tezcacohoatl, and the fourth Chimalman. They arrived at Coahuitl Itzintlan, and there they settled under a very thick tree. They made a shrine and placed the devil on it. After placing it, they took their supplies. They were about to start eating, when suddenly the tree broke above them, and they immediately stopped what they were eating. They walked with their heads down for a long time. Then their devil called them and told them, "Tell the 8 Calpoli communities that you are with them. Tell them that we will not continue forward, and that we will return from here." When he told them this, the 8 Calpoli communities became very sad. "O our lords, where will we go? Where will we accompany you?" And they told them again, "No, we won't go anymore." And first, the 8 Calpoli communities left. There they left the Aztecs in Cuauhtzintlan. They stayed there for a long time. Then they set out, and on the way they found the owl men, who were lying next to a large pot, and others were lying under a mesquite tree. These were called Mimixcohua. The first was called Xiuneltzin. The second was called Mimitzin. The third was a woman and was their older sister. Once again, the devil Huitzilopochtli spoke to them. He told them, "Take those who are next to the pot. They will be the first tribute." Then right there he changed the name of the Aztecs. He told them, "From this moment on, they are no longer called Aztecs, but Mexicas. There, in that place they put feathers in their ears, when they took the name of Mexicas. And there they gave them the arrow, the bow, and the net. They arrowed what was going up. The Mexicas arrived in Quextecatli-Chocayan and Cohuatlicamac in the year 2 House. Then upon them again came the time of the binding of years on the top of Cohuatlicamac Cohuatepel, which was where the fire drill fell in the year 2 Reed. The Mexicas moved to Tolan. In the year of Reed, the Mexicas completed 20 years in Tolan. And then the Mexicas moved to Atlitlalacian. The Mexicas spent 11 years in Atlitlalacian. Then the Mexicas moved to Atotonilco. The Mexicas spent 4 years living in Atotonilco. In the year 4 Flint, the Mexicas moved to Apasco. In the year 2 Reed, the time of the binding of years came upon them again in Apasco, on the top of Huitzcotl, which was where the fire drill fell. In the year 3 Flint, the Mexicas moved to Tzampanco. In year 6, the Mexicas completed 4 years of staying in Tzampanco. In the year 7 Flint, the Mexicas moved to Xaltocan. In year 10, the Mexicas completed 4 years of staying in Xaltocan. Then in the year 11 Flint, the Mexicas moved to Acalhuacan. In year 1, the Mexicas completed 4 years of staying in Acalhuacan. In the year 2 Flint, the Mexicas moved to Ejecatepec. In year 5, the Mexicas completed 4 years of staying in Ejecatepec. In the year 6 Flint, the Mexicas moved to Tolpetlac. In year 13, the Mexicas completed 8 years of staying in Tolpetlac. Then, in the year 1 Flint, the Mexicas moved to Cohuatitlan. In year 7, the Mexicas completed 20 years of staying in Cohuatitlan, and immediately they went to Chalco for Magyes. They scraped them and drank the pulque there in Cohuatitlan. In the year 8 Flint, the Mexicas moved to Huixectitlan. In year 11, the Mexicas completed 4 years of being in Huixectitlan. Then, the Mexicas moved to Tecpayocan. In Tecpayocan, they spent 4 years staying there. In that same place, the Mexicas were surrounded in the war, and Tecpatzin, Huitzilihuitzin, and Tetepantzin died in it. Then, upon them again, came the time of the binding of the years at the top of Tecpayo. In the year 3 Flint, the Mexicas moved to Pantitlan. In year 6, the Mexicas completed 4 years of staying in Pantitlan. There they had an epidemic, where their skin cracked. In the year 7 Flint, the Mexicas moved to Amalinalpan in Azcapotzalco. In the year 1, the Mexicas completed 8 years in Amalinalpan as ruler of Azcapotzalco, Tezazamactli. In the year 2 Flint, the Mexicas moved to Pantitlan. In year 5, the Mexicas completed 4 years of staying in Pantitlan. In the year 6 Flint, the Mexicas moved to Acolnahuac. In the year 9, the Mexicas completed 4 years of staying in Acolnahuac. In the year 10 Flint, the Mexicas moved to Popotlan. In the year 13, the Mexicas completed 4 years of staying in Popotlan. 7. In the year 1 Flint, the Mexicas moved to Tecatitlan. In the year 2, House Tenochtli was made ruler. 160 years. In year 4 Reed, the Mexicas completed 4 years of staying in Tecatitlan. In the year 5 Flint, the Mexicas moved to Atlaquayawan. In the year 8 Reed, the Mexicas completed 4 years of staying in Atlaquayawan. There, they found the dart thrower called Atlatl and the arrow, which is why the Mexicas called this place Atlaquayawan. Then, the Mexicas moved to Chapultepec, 180 years. In Chapultepec, the Mexicas were attacked by the Tepaneca of Colhuacan, who came from all 4 directions. There, they were murdered. In Chapultepec, they spent 20.5 years. Then they moved to Acapulco. There the Mexicas were attacked. There they were defeated, and the time of the binding of years came upon them again. And there they dressed in aquatic moss. From there they took Huitzilihuitl along with his daughter Azcalxoc, and her older sister named Tospansac. They were taken naked with nothing to Ixtlahuacan, in Colhuacan, before the ruler Coxcoxtli. Huitzilihuitl was very sad when he saw his daughter naked, and that is why he said this to the ruler: "O Lord, give my daughter something to cover herself with." And Coxcoxtli responded, "No, I don't want to, and he will leave with nothing." And Huitzilihuitl begged again, saying, "O Lord, give my daughter something to cover herself with. And Coxcoxly responded, no, I don't want to, and he will leave with nothing. And again Huitzilihuitl begged, saying, O Lord, give my daughter something to cover herself with. And Coxcoxly responded again, no, I don't want to, and he will leave with nothing. In the year 3 Flint, the Mexicas were taken to Cantitlan in Colhuacan. They remained in Tizapan in Colhuacan. 8. In year 6 Reed, the Mexicas completed 4 years of staying in Cantitlan de Colhuacan. Even while in Cantitlan, the Mexicas fathered children. In year 6, the Colhuas went to war with the Xochimilcas. The ruler Coxcoxly immediately said, aren't the Mexicas here? Let them come. Then the Mexicas were called. They went before the ruler, and he told them, come, today the Xochimilcas want to conquer us. We entrusted you to capture 400 of them, and they will become your captives. Then the Mexicas responded, it is fine, our lord, but give us an old shield and an old baton. And the ruler said, I don't want to, and they will leave with nothing. And the Mexica gathered together and deliberated and said, what will we take? And they answered, even if we only go with obsidians, we will beat and cut off the noses of our enemies, because if we cut off one ear, they will say that we have cut off both of their ears. And so they don't say that, we'll cut off each one's nose. Let us hang our blankets around our necks. We will count them and carry them in them, since there will not be few. Then they hung themselves and tied their blankets around their necks. They immediately left to fight the Xochimilcas. Some went in canoes to fight, and were led by Cohuapan. It happened at the time of the knight from Colhuacan called Tetzitzilin, who, dressed with the insignia called Amatlazowalhuipili, said, Come, Mexicas, for there is already taking of captives. Then they arrived at the Xochimilcas piers. Then the Mexicas came before the ruler Coxcoxly, began to count the captives before him, and said, Sir, our captives are complete. There were 400 that we have taken. Then he called his advisers and told them, These Mexicas are not people. How did they do what I ordered them, since I was only making fun of them? The Mexicas were too surprised, and only brought 4 live captives. Not all captives were brought before the ruler Coxcoxly. 9. Then they put their earth altar in Tizapan. After building it, they immediately went to tell the ruler, We already have our altar, sir. Give us something to offer. And the ruler responded, It's okay. They were very useful. Let my priests bring gifts. Then the ruler ordered his priests, telling them, Bring dung and hair at this moment, as well as a tapacaminos bird. And they brought these offerings at night. Then the Mexica said, What was it that they gave us for our altar? Then they looked at the center of the altar and were very distressed to see that it was excrement that had been brought to them as a gift. Immediately they themselves destroyed said altar, and as an offering they placed thorns and fir branches. And with humility they went to invite the ruler. He came, and saw how the Mexicas killed their prisoners as offerings. They were sacrificed on Quetzalpanacayatl and Xiuximalquetzalpanitl, but they were not sacrificed without anything. And on top of all this, they put the brand, made images, and tied up the years in Chapultepec. Afterwards they no longer put the firebrand. This happened when the Mexicas were surrounded, and Coxcoxly, already angry, said, Who are these? They are not people. Run them. And they were expelled. They moved to Acatzintitlan de Mexicatzinco. They passed with much difficulty through the thick reed beds and tulares, while they were being shot with arrows. In the year 7 Flint, the Mexicas completed 1 year of stay in Mexicatzinco. In year 8, the Mexicas moved to Nexticpac. In year 11 Flint, the Mexicas completed 4 years of being in Nexticpac. In the year 12 Casa, the Mexicas moved to Iztacalco. In the year 13, the Mexicas spent 2 years in Iztacalco. There they made a paper hill. They sang to it all night. There the general of Colhuacan called Tetzitzilin was praised. He was praised with Tetzitzlinsin, Tetzitzlinsin amatlahuitse, amatlacoche. He was standing there crying. 13 Toctli, Ipan ik on Xutike in Mexica, in Onkan Iztacalco, Onkan Kichuke in Amatepotse Yohual in Kikwikatike. Onkan Kikwikehuke in Tlacatecatl Colhuacan Itoca, Tetsitzlin Kevuke, Tetsitzlinsin Amatlahuidse, Amatlakoche, Ompanchotikak, and 10. In the year 1, the Mexicas moved to Zoquipan. In this same year and in this same place, the women of the Mexicas gave birth. They immediately built temescals in Temascaltitlan, since that is where they were. They bathed and went out to investigate, and they walked for 196 years. Axolahua, with another named Quahucohuatl, went to explore and went out to Acatitlan where a cactus was found, on which an eagle perched. Below it was its nest, padded with different precious feathers, red spoonbill feathers, blue contiga feathers, and other precious feathers. And then the person called Quahucohuatl returned, called everyone, and said, "We have gone to see dark blue water." And there Axolahua was submerged. As soon as he was submerged, he transformed into Quahucohuatl. This is what he came to tell his companions. There Axolahua died after being submerged. There where we saw the cactus standing among the reeds, on which an eagle was perched, and beneath it was its nest padded with different waters. There was dark blue water, and it was there where Axolahua was submerged. This is what Quahucohuatl told them. And the next day, Axolahua came out and told his companions, "I went to see Tlaloc. He spoke to me and told me, my beloved son Huitzilopochtli has arrived. This will be his home, and he will be loved as long as we all live on earth." And after communicating this, the Mexicas immediately went to look out. They went to see the Tenochtli, and there they contemplated it. They began to sweep and clean under the cactus. Right there, they placed an earthen altar. Xochimitl went to rejoice at that place, and right there they found a captain from Colhuacan. He was immediately brought. He was brought and placed inside the altar. They placed that captain named Chichilcuahuitl, captain of Colhuacan, as the center and heart. The construction of this altar was in the year 2 Flint. Mexico, the great city of New Spain. When the Chichimecas arrived in Colhuacan, at that time the Chichimecas made buildings at the foot of the cactus. They built tule huts and lived in them, and they began to hunt. But they were immediately surrounded, and from the dry land their bonfires were seen making a lot of smoke. This smoke was so foul that many who absorbed it bloated and died. Several times they wanted to conquer him, but they couldn't. In the year 1 Flint, Acamapixtli founded the lordship, and it was he who rose to power. 40 years, Acamapixtli died here. Huitzilihuitl was promoted as the second. Here was the tying of our years. It was the 5th time, and this was when the grasshoppers came down. 40 years. Huitzilihuitl died here. The 3rd ruler was promoted, and it was Chimalpopoca who took office. It was he who went against the Tepanecs. 60 years. Here Chimalpopoca died and was taken by the Tepanecas. Itzcoatl settled here as the 4th ruler. The Quauhnahuacas were imprisoned here in the year 1 Flint. Here some Quauhnahuacas were defeated and perished, subject to servitude and paid tribute for 1 year to the house of Itzcoatl. Itzcoatl died here. In the year 11, Ilhuicaminatzin, Motehuichoma the Elder, settled as the 5th ruler. 80 years. The grasshoppers came down here and were eaten in times of famine. Here the harvest froze, and that's when the famine began. Nikan in Nese Tohuilok, Quautica ne Anok Ichquak in Nototonakahuilok. The year 1 rabbit arrived, and those who ate poultry meat were captured with sticks. Nikan in Nese Tohuilok, Quautica ne Anok Ichquak in Nototonakahuilok. Here we were marked by the year rabbit, and we were subjected to sticks when we surrendered to the Totonacas. Here the binding of our years was made for the 6th time, and when no one gave them folded tortillas, and they had nothing in their stomachs, they died and the vultures ate them, since there was no one to bury them. In year 4, the rains came, there was fertility throughout the land, and corn, chia, amaranth, and beans were produced in abundance. 100 years. Here the Chalcas perished. Here the Cuetlaxtecas perished. Here Ilhuicaminatzin died, and Axayacatzin settled as the 7th ruler, and that was when the inhabitants of Xochitlan were destroyed. Here the Tlatilocas were defeated. They were not fought for long by Axayacatzin. Nikan poliuchke in Tlatilolca, Achmohuecao in Kimompeu. Axayacatzin ka mokichnnenekia. In Mokiwix nehuan, in Teconal in Tlacayelmatl, Yehuatl, Cuacuautzenzan y Pantloca, Huel Popolihuisquia. Here there was an earthquake, and many hills fell, and all the houses collapsed. Here the Oquiltecas were defeated. Here the Ichpatepecas were defeated. Here the Matlatzinca, inhabitants of Cali y Mañan, were defeated. There Axayacatzin was wounded by Tlilcuespal, inhabitant of Xiquipilco. Axayacatzin was hit in the leg. Here there was an eclipse of the sun. All the stars appeared. This happened when Axayacatzin died. And Tizoquicatzin was established as the seventh ruler. Shortly after, the stones for Huitzilopochtli's house were raised. 120 years. Here Ahuizotzin ascended the throne as the eighth ruler. A temple was built here by the Tziocohuacas and Mazatecas when the Cuauhnahuacas, Tepostecas, Huaxtepecas, and Silaxochitepecas came back to the throne over the Nahuatl. Here it trembled when the Moyohualitoa appeared. Here it hailed, and all the fish that lived in the waters died. Here they ate the grasshoppers that came down. Here it shook, and immediately the whole earth cracked. Here the inhabitants of Xochitlan were defeated. The Amaxtecs were defeated here when Tlacahupantzin died in Huexotzinco. 14 Nican Moquets, Aquaquexatl, Xiloti and Toctli Apachiyu, Zanquitla in Ahuitzotzin, Achmoquimacaya in Sotzomatzin Coyohuacan, Tlachtoani ik Quicaliti, Amo Tehuan Tequipano, in Tepanecatl, ik Climictisquia, in Sotzomatzin. Nican Tetatacoto Malinalco, in Aquin Achmomiek Tlacatl, in Quitzautia. Ahuitzotzin died here. Moteuxomatzin immediately ascended the throne as the ninth ruler. Here they again went to carve stone in Malinalco. 140 years. Here Macahuatl arrived. Here the Tzitzimitl came down. Here the inhabitants of Zozolan were conquered. Here our years were tied for the 8th time since the Mexicas left Aztlan. The wood pigeons came down here. Here the omen appeared when a round stone pillar rolled in Texihuacan when the Christians came after worshipping God, when they arrived here. And they came to write about the temple. Nican in Tetzahuitl, Hualmoca Quetzaya, Iquac Temoc Tenimili, Texihuacan, Iquac Hualehuaque, in Expitianome, Inik Quinmoyolotilito, Inik Nican Oxiquihui. Alf Kaik Pach Hualalaquilohuaya, in Teocali. Here the Icpatepecas and the Ixquisochitepecas were conquered. Here the inhabitants of Tlaxcuilauco were conquered. The dust rose here when there was famine. Here they went to Malinalco for the 3rd time to carve the stone, and it was then that the Huexotzincas came to spy. Moteuxomatzin died here, and that was when the Marquis arrived, when the Mexicas were defeated. The Christians said that they did not come without purpose, but by command of God and order of St. Peter. He told them 15, "Tell the knights that there are still 2 lands to which they will go." Then 12 friars arrived. Isn't it known who said this? And he said again, "Make today what we will be." And the nobles said, "Call our elders." And immediately they went and ordered them, telling them, "We are going back to what we usually do." And the elders said, "Let it spread strongly." And Captain Ekatzin said, "Listen to what has happened before our eyes in Cholula. These were surrounded, and now they want to do the same to us. Let every 20 escudos become our refuge." And Moteuxoma said, "Are we at war? Damn it." And the general responded, "It's okay." And the song begins, led by a young man, Hihuatezcatl, who puts the headdress called Tolnahuacatl on his head when he begins the song. And each of the Christians came out from the crowd, and 4 by 4 went to stand at the entrance. They immediately went to beat the one who was leading. One of them went to hit the image of the devil. Others went to hit those who were playing the 2 drums. One was on the shore. Then everyone stood up. They were all killed, and one who had a censer in his hand in front of him shouted, "Mexicans, why does no one do anything? Perhaps they don't understand. Who are these who have in their hands the shields of the vassals and batons of Axayatl trees?" And they all backed away and pushed each other. That's how they got locked in, and he had already been locked up for 20 days until the month of Quetzalcoatlitl, and in this month, the order of Moctezuma came out secretly, telling his captains, "Listen, Mexicans, it's been 2 days without eating anything. The gods asked for their batons, but they gave them reed mats to eat. And today, there are already 2 thunders. Tell our captains so that their presence is not missing." And the captains responded, "All right." And they said that at night they put in grass for the horses. And the captain came immediately when there were already 7 days of fighting. They went to Tlaxcala in the month of Teoxuilitontli when Moctezuma died. When he died, he was given to a person named Apanecatl to carry, and he was taken to Hitzalin, where he was followed. Then he was taken to Ecatitlan, where he was shot with arrows. He was immediately taken to Tecpancinco, where he was also followed. Then he was taken to Acatal y Acapan, where he was left by the Apanecatl, saying, "O our lords, Moctezuma is afflicted. Perhaps I will carry him from one place to another." And the stewards got to work, burning Moctezuma's body. And in the months of Teoxuilitontli, Tlaxochimaco, Xocotlhuetzi, and Ochpanitzli Cuitlahuatzin ascended the throne, but died in the month of Quecholi, before Panquetzalitzli. Then Atemotzli, Tititl, Izcalli, Atlacahualo. In the month of Tlacaxipehualitzli, Cuauhtemotzin ascended the throne, and conquered the Chalcas and the inhabitants of Xochitlan. Niman Cuitaque Telman Mohualmanque, Tozostontli Ipan Inmique Pipiltin. Sihuacpopoca Soxopehualoc, Sihuactzin, Tenquequenot, Axayaca, Totlatlicol. Inik Mike Sihuacpopoca, Qui Nahuatl hin Cuauhtemoc Amatlan, Tlenamacats Qui Milhui. In Tiachcahuan Kanye o Milhuitl, in Notlan, Hualchetsemilhuitia, in Sihuacpopoca, Maitlah Mechaiti. Niman Cuitoque in Tiachcahuan. Maca Quimoyoli Tlacalhui in Tlacatl, Tlacocolisquitis, Maticahuacan Mayao. Niman ye Monahuatia in Tlamacasque, no yehuantin, in Tiachcahuan, in Temictisque, Niman ye Quintectemoahin, Oquitaque Mohuenequilitihui. In Cuauhtemoczin, Niman Iquectlan Canato Quilhuia. Oxihuala o Nican Titse. Niman ye Quihuiteki Huetozostli. Niman ye Toxcatl, Etzalcoalitzli, Ipan in Texempehualtique, Expianome, Tequilitontli, Huetequilitol, Niman ye Micailitontli. Iknapohualtonatiu, in Icaxihuac Mexicayotl, Tenochcayotl. Cuitlahuatzin, the 10th ruler, ascended the throne in the month of Ochpanitzli. He only ruled for 40 days, as he died in the month of Quecholi due to blisters. He died when the Castilians went to Tlaxcala. Cuauhtemoczin, the 11th ruler, ascended the throne in the month of Nemontemi, Cuahuitlahua. And there, the Mexica, the Tenochca nation, dispersed when the Spaniards entered. In the year 4 Toctli, when Marquis was in Cuayohuacan, at that time he gathered the rulers, Cuauhtemoczin, Tlacotzin, Oquitzin, and Juanitzin. When Marquis went to Pantlan Quextlan, when the wax candle appeared, the Melaquao Alonso, Tlacah Matlaca Tomin Tokpayin. Here the Sihuacoatl Tlacotzin ascended the throne. And this was when there was an eclipse of the sun. When the bait sail appeared, they found victory with Morales and Jacobo Hernandez. And again they greeted Marquez. This is where Cosmani began, in Guatemala, when Moctezuma spoke vigorously. And again they went to Colhuacan Tenochtitlan, when the pumpkin was raised in Chapultepec. The weddings began here. Here Don Pablo Xochican ascended the throne, when the inhabitants of Colimancan blistered again. He was already the 14th ruler. The president arrived here when the example was set. Santiago, and when the body was healed, the women also covered themselves. And when Don Pablo defeated the Tenochcas, and when the road to Chapultepec was built. Here there was a flea market called Santo Domingo. There was an earthquake, where everything moved very quickly, and at this time it was when Francisco Tzihua was given the reed. Don Diego Panitzin ascended the throne as the 12th ruler when Don Antonio de Mendoza viceroy arrived. And at this time the Tomines appeared, also at this time the presidents started. A wooden temple was built here when the Tenochcas were burned in their boats. Here the new land began. The Tenochcas left for half a year when Don Diego Panitzin died. Don Diego Tehuetzcuitzin ascended the throne as the 13th ruler. Year of 1541. Here they conquered the Xochipiltecas. Year of 1542. Here the flat and plain quarter coin appeared, when the Tenochcas arrived in the new land and when the Xochipilancas entered. Year of 1543. 18. The dust rose here when there was famine. When the Atempaneca Bartolome Teopan shouted, and when the Tetzicapan cave appeared. Year of 1544. Year of 1545. A disease appeared here that caused nosebleeds. It spread for a year when the San Hipólito flea market was erected. Year of 1546. Year of 1547. San Jose was destroyed here when it shook. The canal was also made in Apepetscan. Year of 1548. Bishop Don Fray Juan de Zumárraga died here, when the basin where Francisco Ocelotecatl was bathed with lime was enlarged. Judges Huexotzincas Mateo Juárez and Francisco Vázquez also arrived. Year of 1549. Here again the mayor sat. Francisco Anestoc began the mayor's office when he began the tribute by giving 2 coins. Year of 1550. Year 1551. Here they attacked the people of Atenco, where they had the Tenochcas tied up. Day 3 of the month of February, year of 1552. Don Luis de Leo Romano arrived here. He searched for all forms of life when Zacatlan was attacked, and when the Ixmatlaltepetl hill in Chalco fell apart, when the resurrection of our God was fulfilled, when the spring San Francisco was expanded. Here the wall of San Francisco was renewed. 19. When Zacatlan was attacked again. Year of 1553. Those from the Teonitlahuaque church were repressed. March 2nd. And when it was learned that Viceroy Pelon died. Don Diego Tehuetzcuitzin died here on May 11th. On June 26th, Judge Esteban de Guzman was given the baton of command. Don Diego Tehuetzcuitzin was going to undergo an examination of conscience. Year of 1554. On June 23rd, Don Alonso de Montufar, Archbishop, arrived. Also when Judge Montealegre arrived on July 16th, he examined the conscience of the judges, Messias Quezada Herrera. On Saturday, February 12th, Francisco Ocelotecatl, Gabriel Tlomiauhu, and Baltazar Xochimitl arrived on the shores of Lake Tenochtitlan. Grass was laid in San Lázaro, where the hut is located. It was renewed on Thursday, February 28th. Year of 1555. The Viceroy defended the public works. He said, "This Monday the people of 890 houses will meet." He also said, "They will need a hospital, and to build it will require 400 pesos. And the workers erected it. And the singers will spend 300 pesos. The only time it was sold in the Plaza de San Hipólito was on Wednesday, October 2nd. On Friday, December 6th, the wall began. Here the wall was finished. On May 14th the fish went down. Here the hospital was started together with the sacristan of San Jose. Year of 1556. On November 11th, a road was made behind Castañeda that goes directly to Xochitla. The sacristan of San Jose was completed here. The church of San Miguel began to be built here. Here Don Cristobal de Guzman Sequetzin ascended the throne on January 6th. Year of 1557. Here the Tehuilo-Yocan Road was made on March 6th. June 6th, the rulers were gathered here to be informed of the handover of the kingdom to the Emperor and Prince Don Felipe, and that for this reason there will be processions for 3 days of joy. Here the little house of the sacrament was completed, and the entire example of St. Francis was seen. It's market day again, Wednesday, October 13th, year of 1558. Year of 1558. On May 28th, the grasshoppers came out of the mountains. Year of 1558. Saturday, May 28th. The cut-faced Chichimecas arrived. On the feast of San Juan, San Miguel was killed. Year of 1559. Today, April 15th, the grasshoppers came out. Monday, April 24th. The viceroy embarked the people who went to Andalusia. 21. On Monday, May 29th, the channel started. Year of 1559. Here our years were tied for the 8th time. On July 8th, the viceroy arrived to embark the people. On August 12th, Judge Don Esteban de Guzman came to amend the Calpoli community's lands. On the feast of San Andres, the Emperor Don Carlos was laid to rest. On March 12th, the codices were burned. On May 9th, those who were tied up at night began to leave. Here the doctor of the kingdom returned. Here Juan Caliego, together with Judge Esteban de Guzman, censused our houses. On August 10th, the judges of Andalusia arrived. On October 8th, water fell again in the palace courtyard. On Monday the 24th, Judge Esteban de Guzman came to power in Tlatelolco. On December 11th, the viceroy went to have fun in San Miguel. They put the Spaniards' boat in a pond, the paper emitted, and the fire broke out. Year of 1561. Here came Doña Ana, wife of Don Diego, daughter of Don Luis de Velasco, viceroy of Zacatlacan. Year of 1562. Here by decree, Don Pablo de la Cruz and Martín Cano were settled as mayors. They took their command staffs. On Friday, August 7th, the church was whitewashed in the back, where a Ferris wheel is located. 22. On Monday, August 31st, they gathered the girls to be indoctrinated. In September, corn was already scarce, and a bushel was worth 1 peso and was received by the mayors and councilors. Today, Saturday, October 18th, Don Cristobal de Guzman Masaquetzin passed away. Here 3 priests were promoted by the archbishop. Year of 1563. Today, Sunday, January 17th, Marcus' son arrived. Today, March 9th, the confirmations were carried out. Today, Tuesday, August 31st, Don Luis de Santa Maria Cipac came to power. Today, Sunday, September 12th, Bishop Sant Jose settled. Monday, on the 20th day of the month of September, the visitor arrived. The measles began here, ending the year. The priests helped us and they confessed us in our stucco houses. We also received help from the doctors. Year of 1564. Today, Tuesday, the 30th day of the month of February, the church was finally whitewashed. On Monday, May 29th, I dug trenches for my house that is in the image. Thursday, July 13th, it was decreed that 1 peso and 3 coins will be required in the house. At the end of the decree, they stoned the governor and a mayor when the count went to see the Mexica. Some were sold for 5 years and others for 2 years to be servants. On Monday, July 31st, Viceroy Don Luis Velasco was buried in Santo Domingo. On Wednesday, August 16th, those who were counts died. The new ones, counts, went there. This year the stores of different Spaniards were finished and inaugurated. Year 1565. Today, Sunday, January 8th, there was indoctrination in the main church, since the clerics worked everywhere and also rested the people. Today, Sunday, January 21st, there was indoctrination in San Jose. On June 2nd, Juan Galeacopo's writing is followed up. On Friday, December 28th, Governor Don Luis del Maria was buried. 1566 years. Wednesday, January 2nd, the judges, Dr. Poga and Moore, competed for the baton of command. Today, Monday, March 25th, the visitor began. On Holy Tuesday, April 9th, the hearing broke up and the Mexican died there. On Tuesday, July 16th, Marquis and Alonso Lavilla were arrested and detained, along with their younger brother. And Alonso Lavilla and his younger brother, Pablo Gonzalez, died on Saturday, August 3rd, where there were 19 tied up. Today, Monday, October 21st, Viceroy Don Casto de Peralta arrived. Today, Wednesday, June 5th, 1566, Juan Grande followed up on his document. Year of 1567. Today, Monday, March 10th, Marquez retired. Here judges Alonso Cadena and Moyos made inquiries. On Monday, May 5th, the earth began to be scraped to make ditches everywhere, and it was made for the boats. Today, Juana Lopez was born. Year 1568. 24, Thursday, January 8th, 3 ship watchmen were hanged, and they were from Alonso Tavilla and Villa Castellan. And at noon they hanged the third, since they were divided at night. And the next day, which was Friday, year of 1569. On Thursday, July 14th, while it was still night, Judge Francisco Jimenez began to work, when they buried Añanones. Today, Saturday, August 23rd, Don Francisco Jimenez arrived, year of 1570. Today, Saturday, February 4th, Baltazar Cuautli went to China. The Acaxochiyanquican aqueduct began. Today, Monday, February 6th, we were in the back of Santa Cruz. Today, Friday, September 15th, we went to complete what we were looking for. On the other hand, our job was the grass. Year of 1571. Here came our spiritual inquisitor leader. On Monday, September 3rd, we went and were at the pond. Year of 1572. Today, Friday, March 7th, Archbishop Don Fray de Montufar passed away. Today, Thursday, March 17th, the blacks of Santo Domingo were taken. The San Juan Canal was opened. Today, Wednesday, April 9th, there were prayers for the drowned people, and there was also the taking of captives. Year of 1573. 25, Francisco Jimenez died. Today, Friday, January 4th, the messengers arrived at midnight. Today, Sunday, January 14th, Judge Antonio Valeriano arrived and started working. Today, January 29th, the Chalcas took possession. Today, the trench for the San Hipólito flea market store began to be dug. Year of 1574. Here the bishop presented to the inquisitor all the types of sins that are committed. The inquisitor was presented on Sunday. On February 28th, they burned the rulers. They killed our father on the beach of Veracruz. Today, Holy Thursday, April 8th, a procession was held with the image of our Lord. Mayor Mr. Martin Hernandez, Mayor Gaspar Garcia, Mayor Toribio Lucas. Today, Sunday, December 5th, the Archbishop was sanctified. On Friday, July 30th, the wooden church of San Jose was demolished. Year of 1575. Today, Saturday, July 30th, the priests St. Paul and St. Augustine entered and said Mass. Today, Friday, November 4th, the San Miguel Canal began to be whitewashed. Year of 1576. The police officers who were tied up came out. A coin will be used for the work. Today, Saturday, August 18th. Also in this month of August, an illness arose that caused our noses to bleed. We were also confessed in our homes, and in the same way we were given some food. The doctors were the ones who cured us. And when 26 the bell was left, it was no longer rung. We were belittled and left in silence in the church. On Sunday, September 16th, there was a procession of St. Lucia for the disease. On Monday, I was cured in the English. And on Thursday, the procession with a saint was no longer held, and it was stipulated that whoever wanted to be part of the procession would have to pay 5 pesos. With all this, prayers would be made, and so it was done. Year of 1577. Today, Tuesday, October 8th, 1577, an eagle descended in the chapel of San Jose. Today, Friday, October 11th, 1577, Angla took a census. Today, Wednesday, November 6th, 1577, a star began to smoke. Year of 1578. Year of 1579. On the Feast of the Saints, there was a procession with the Holy Cross, where our Savior who came from Rome died. When there was a lot of famine, the corn was taken care of and sold by the viceroy and the mayors. In October, the Tlaxcanatl fell. On December 22nd, Santa Clara's children left. Year of 1580. Many fish appeared here. On Friday, September 23rd, 1580, Viceroy Don Martin Enriquez began to rule. On Tuesday, October 4th, Viceroy Don Lorenzo entered. At the end of the patella, they went to meet him. On Monday, March 20th, the San Agustin clock fell from where it was hanging. 27, year of 1581. On Tuesday, April 11th, it shook at night, and again at noon. On May 8th, Judge Alonso de Nava took a census. On June 15th, a document arrived about the death of the rulers' wives. The wives of the king and viceroy also died, and for them there was a cessation. On June 24th, on the day of St. John the Baptist, they put a Spaniard into the white water to bathe. On Monday, September 11th, it shook very hard at night. Year of 1582, today, January 23rd, 1582, Bastiana was born. On the 6th Aquarius, 10 hours numbers 6, hour 8, Tuesday. Today, Saturday, September 8th, Mass was said, and once again we were sent to San Sebastian. Today, Friday, December 9th, 1582, the water fell. And Mr. Don Lorenzo Juarez de Mendoza no longer saw it where it was practiced. Year of 1583. On Monday, February 4th, 1583, the canal was started. It was dug everywhere, and for a week it was very cold, and the people suffered a lot. When the San Pablo aqueduct was started. On Friday, March 22nd, it was brought to San Pablo, and it was brought from Totolapan. On Sunday, April 24th, there was a procession and joy, because in Castile there was taking of captives. At night bonfires were set on all the rooftops, and anyone who didn't have to pay 10 pesos. On Tuesday, June 4th, the Blessed St. Augustine arrived at night. On Wednesday, it rained all night. On Saturday, June 29th, Mr. Lorenzo Juarez de Mendoza died, 28, year of 1584. Today, Friday, January 27th, the trumpeters left after the Spaniards. Santiago de Vala took them. On Friday, June 30th, the gold was buried because the concession ended there. There the children of the rulers will study. The bishop blessed them with their gold and silver chains. Friday to June 30th, Motakak Teoquitlatao in Onkan Yekahuiz. Onkan Momactisque in Impilhuan Tlatohue Kimo Teochihuelis in Bishop Teoquitlatl, Cadena, Custic, Ihuan Iztac. Today, Tuesday, September 12th, 1584, the main church began to be demolished. And that was when Mass was said in the name of Juana Lopez. Year of 1585. Today, Monday, January 15th, 1585, the main church collapsed. On Sunday, January 21st, the bishops made a procession, but 8 of them were not at their side. And in October they were taken to work. On Sunday, November 28th, the Viceroy Don Francisco de Alvaro came. Today, Sunday, February 25th, 1585, Maria Antonia was born. On the 9th Sagittarius at 8, Jupiter Oreo 8, year of 1586. On Sunday, January 19th, the priests of San Sebastian arrived. Here JTS disappeared along with his position. Today, Wednesday, June 11th, 1586, they fought against Bishop Pablo Moyan. First he was an inquisitor, then an archbishop, and now he is viceroy. The first thing he did was fix the main church, and he also ran out the Spaniards who were counselors. Year of 1587, 29. Here the tribute of 13 tomines was gathered, and once again the sacristan of San Jose was renewed. He advocated for Father Fray Alonso Martinez and San Francisco Capavan, and again the help to the sick began. On August 23rd, they began roasting the corn for 7 days. 7 pesos of tomines that were given in Marque's house. The father gave Ihuan Yeno Sepa, Ihuac Puh, in Cuitlacoliche, Cocoxque. 23 Augusto. In Po, Ilucalwaya, Chicomiluitil, Tlaoli Matlactli, Omome Aneca Ihuan Chicome Pesos, Tomines. Ompa, Motemacaya, in Ichan Marques. Totatsin Kitemakaya, Ikmokolwan Nakatl. Year of 1588. Year of 1589. Today, Monday, April 10th, 1589, the judge began to work. Today, Tuesday, April 11th, on Wednesday and Thursday it shook very hard for 2 days, and on Wednesday the 15th it shook again. Monday, July 3rd, 1589, a trench was dug in the courtyard of the San Jose Chapel, and it was also stuccoed. On Sunday, July 9th, 1589, the Viceroy's daughter died in Coyohuacan, but was buried here in San Francisco. On Tuesday, August 1st, 1589, the Virgin Santa Maria spent the entire day in the Tequixquipan Calpoli community after arriving from Castilla. Today, Thursday, January 18th, 1590, the Viceroy Don Francisco de Alvaro began to rule. Today, Thursday, January 25th, the Viceroy Don Luis Velasco arrived. Today, Friday, July 6th, the judge was brought in. On Sunday, August 26th, 90 years ago, the Church of San Francisco was closed, and masses are no longer held there. On Sunday, September 16, the children gathered in the new chapel. Today, Sunday, October 14th, the sacrament was entered into the Church of San Jose. On Monday, October 29th, Don Antonio arrived, and with him the war ended. Year of 1591. Today, Thursday, March 14th, 1591, it shook again. On Thursday, October 3rd, 1591, the corner of the Church of San Jose was stuccoed in the part where the bell will hang. Au in Nopon Huatzapa 96. Year of 1595. Today, Wednesday, October 25th, Viceroy Don Manrique left. Today, Sunday, November 6th, Viceroy Don Gaspar Conde arrived. When the aqueduct was going to start, and when the measles plague arose, and also when the work of the birds began. Year of 1596. Today, Sunday, December 8th, when they went to wait for the sent inquisitor. In his house, there was Axcan Sunday to December 8th, in Ichuac Omochiato, in Otlatilanque, Kichital Ichan Katka, Kachiu Nahui Yolti Katka, Mathlaktin Ompa Mique, Tail Piloyan Sanik Siptla, in Tlatlaquextli. Year 1 House. Year 1597, this was when the Franciscan friars arrived, and on October 10th, they went to establish themselves in Santa Maria. On Sunday, October 19th, a procession was carried out, carrying the Virgin of the Assumption. Year 2, Rabbit. On February 6th, 1598, the Friday of Lent procession of Brother Lupe Izquierdo began in Santa Maria. Year 1604, 8 Flint. This year our beloved father, Brother Francisco de Gamboa, guardian of Tlatelolco, passed away. It was a Thursday, the feast of St. Mary Magdalene. Also this year, we suffered from a flood here in Mexico, and therefore a wall was built over the dry mud. Year of 1605. 9 House. On Friday, March 25th, a car was made in Santo Domingo. 32 were shown. Incomplete idea. Year 1606. 10 Rabbit. Today, Friday, March 3rd, we were counted by Judge Gaspar de Monterrey. Year 1607. 11 Acatl. Today, Sunday, July 8th, the Viceroy Don Luis de Velasco entered. Year 1608. 12 Flint. The ruler Tenochtin, Akamapichli 40 years. Huitzili Huitzin 22 years old. Chimalpopokatsin 12 years old. Itzcoatsin 13 years old. The old man Motechuma Ilhuikaminatsin 29 years old. Aksayakatsin 14 years old. Tizochikatsin 4 years. Ahuizotsin 17 years old. Motechumatsin 19 years old. Quitlahuatsin 80 days, 32 Cuauhtemoxin, 2 years. Flacatsin Sihuacohuatl, Motelchutsin, Don Pablo Xochiquén. Cuautlatoque, these 3 generals Mexica Tenochca. Don Diego Juanitzin, Don Antonio de Mendoza. Don Luis de Velasco, Don Diego Tehuetzquititzin, Judge Don Esteban de Guzman. Year of 1554. Don Cristobal de Guzman, 1557, Don Luis Sipac, 1563, Don Gaston de Peralta, Viceroy, 1573, 1568, Don Martin Enriquez, Viceroy, 1573, Don Francisco Jimenez, inhabitant of Tecamacalco, Judge Don Antonio Valenciano, resident judge of Azcapotzalco, 1596, 1597, 1598, 1599. Don Juan Martin is an inhabitant of Mexico. Governor, 33, Governor Don Guillermo Soares, inhabitant of Xaltocan, 1604, 1605, 1606. Archbishop Fray Gaza de Santa Maria arrived here. 1607, Viceroy Don Juan de Mendoza arrived here.